In 2024, more than 100,000 Canadians packed up and left the country for good, and a big share of them were retirees chasing warmer weather and a lower cost of living. Here is the number almost all of them got wrong. Old age security at age 65 pays a maximum of $743.05 a month in 2026. But if you have fewer than 20 years of Canadian residency after your 18th birthday, that payment can stop the month after you leave Canada. Think about what that means. You could be walking away from close to $8,916 a year in OAS, money you already earned by living here, gone the moment your plane lands somewhere else. And most people never see it coming because their advisor never mentioned it. Here is the part that changes everything. You may not need 20 years at all. There are two legal workarounds, partial OAS and something called a Social Security Agreement, that can keep that money flowing even when you retire abroad. Most advisors have never walked a client through either one. If you are a Canadian in your 50s or 60s thinking seriously about a move overseas, hit subscribe so you stop losing money on rules like this one. Because most people assume OAS, CPP, and GIS all follow you anywhere in the world. That is simply not true. One of them follows you everywhere. One of them depends entirely on a rule most people have never heard of. And the third, GIS, the one that lower income retirees lean on the most, shuts off after just 6 months outside the country. Let me show you exactly what happens to each one the moment you cross the border. Let me give you the rule in plain language. OAS is payable outside Canada only if you have lived here for at least 20 years after turning 18. If you have between 10 and 19 years, you still qualify for a partial OAS while you live in Canada, but that partial amount normally stops once you become a non-resident unless a treaty with your new country bridges the gap. CPP is different. It has no residency requirement at all, so it pays anywhere on Earth. And GIS stops completely after 6 consecutive months outside Canada. No treaty saves it, no exceptions. Read that last part again, because it is the trap most people fall into. GIS is the piece that lower income retirees count on the most, and it is the very first one to disappear the moment you settle in somewhere new. Here is the math that makes it real. The maximum GIS for a single senior in 2026 is $1,086.88 a month. Stack that on top of the maximum OAS of $743.05, and you are looking at $1,829.93 a month from those two benefits alone. Now move abroad full-time. 6 months later, the GIS portion is gone. That is over $13,000 a year vanishing from your budget. That is not trimming a few expenses. That is a door slamming shut. And the OAS side has its own quiet cliff. Say you have 15 years of Canadian residency after 18. While you live here, you collect a partial OAS worth roughly $278.64 a month, which is 15/40ths of the full amount. Cross the border without a treaty in place, and that stops too. CPP keeps paying, but CPP on its own rarely carries a full retirement. Picture it in plain terms. Your property tax bill, your car insurance renewal, your pharmacy copay, none of that shrinks just because you crossed a border. If GIS was the piece quietly covering that gap, losing it is not an abstract policy point. It shows up the first month the deposit is smaller than the bills, and it keeps showing up every month after. I want to be careful here, because this is where people start feeling foolish. You did not fail. Nobody ever handed you this rulebook. The system was built around the idea that you would grow old inside the country, and the rules never really caught up with the fact that thousands of Canadians now retire somewhere else. The rules are not out to get you. They are just outdated. But if you do not know them, you are the one who pays the bill. So what if you are sitting at fewer than 20 years right now, doing the quiet arithmetic in your head, feeling like the door is already closed? That is exactly the moment the first real workaround comes into play, and it is the piece almost nobody explains properly. Let me show you how a treaty can turn a hard no into a yes. I will be honest with you. For years, I thought you needed a full 20 years in Canada, no exceptions, or you lost OAS the moment you moved. Then I started reading the actual agreements Canada has signed. I was wrong. And I am glad I was, because the truth gives a lot of people their money back. Canada has social security agreements with more than 50 countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Mexico, Portugal, and the Philippines. These agreements do two powerful things. First, they let you count your years of contribution or coverage in the partner country toward the 20-year threshold, so someone who spent part of their working life abroad can still reach full OAS portability. Second, and this is the one that matters most for early movers, the agreement lets your partial OAS follow you out of the country based on your actual Canadian years, with no 6-month cutoff. Let me put a real number on it. Say you have 12 years of Canadian residency after 18, and you move to Portugal, which has an agreement with Canada. Without that treaty, your OAS would stop 6 months after you left. With it, you collect 12/40ths of the maximum, which is about $222.92 a month, for life, paid to you overseas. That is roughly $2,675 a year that would have simply disappeared. Over a 20-year retirement, that is more than $53,000, and that is before you count what it would cost to replace that income any other way. For a lot of retirees, that single form is the difference between a plan that holds and a plan that slowly runs dry. That is the invisible cost most people never do the math on. Skipping this one check does not hurt you on moving day. It hurts you slowly, one missing deposit at a time for the rest of your life, and by the time you notice, you have usually let go of the residency ties that would have let you fix it. So the treaty is the key that unlocks the door, but there is a catch waiting on the other side, and it catches almost everyone. When your OAS and CPP get paid to a non-resident, Canada takes a withholding tax right off the top before the money ever reaches you. The default rate is 25%. On a combined CPP and OAS payment, that is a serious bite. The good news is that the same treaties that protect your OAS usually cut that withholding down hard, often to 15% for a country like the United States or Mexico, and lower still in some others. But that reduced rate is not automatic. You do not get it just because a treaty exists. You have to claim it with a specific form filed at the right time before the payments start. Miss that step, and you hand over 25% for no reason at all. Let me show you where that fits into the bigger plan, and the second trap that has nothing to do with treaties at all. Now here is where a lot of smart people think they have found the safe path. The snowbird strategy. Keep your Canadian home. Keep your driver's license and your health card. Spend fewer than 183 days a year abroad, and tell yourself you are still a resident, still protected, still collecting everything. On paper, it looks bulletproof. But CRA does not just count your days. They look at where your life actually is. They call it the Center of Vital Interests test, and it weighs things like where your spouse lives, where your dependents are, and where your real social and economic ties sit. If your spouse moves abroad with you full-time, or you rent out your Canadian home to strangers, you can fail that test even at 182 days. The calendar says one thing, your life says another, and CRA follows your life. I understand why people build it this way. You do not want to cut ties. You want a safety net under you while you test the waters. That is a completely normal instinct, and it is not a foolish one. But that same instinct, left undocumented, can cost you tens of thousands in back taxes and interest if CRA decides your residency status was never what you assumed. There are 3 red flags that tend to trigger a closer look. First, renting out your Canadian home, which CRA can read as giving up your main residential tie. Second, a spouse or partner living abroad full-time, which breaks the strongest personal tie you have. Third, no real ongoing life here, no local medical appointments, no utility bills, no community involvement, so your secondary ties quietly fade away. If you want to keep the snowbird path, you protect it with a paper trail, a signed lease if you rent out part of your home, a Canadian medical appointment at least once a year, a Canadian bank account you actually use to pay regular bills, and a clear record of every day in and out of the country. I have watched this go sideways. One couple kept their Vancouver condo, spent 5 months a year in Arizona, and still ended up in a long fight with CRA over which country they truly belonged to, because so much of their daily life, including the husband's doctor, had quietly shifted south. It took a lawyer and the better part of 2 years to settle. The fragile version of this plan assumes it is safe and hopes nobody ever asks. The resilient version either documents every tie or makes a clean, deliberate choice to become a non-resident using the treaty workaround we just covered. So, once you have picked your path, what do you actually do next? Let me give you the checklist. All right, let me turn all of this into steps you can work through in order. Step 1. Confirm your qualifying years. You can check this through your My Service Canada account or by calling Service Canada directly. Look for your old age security record and count your years of residency after age 18. If you land somewhere between 10 and 19 years, you are a prime candidate for partial OAS abroad, but only with a treaty behind you. Step 2. Verify your destination's agreement. Canada keeps an official list of the countries it has social security agreements with. If the country you are dreaming about is on that list, your partial OAS can travel with you. If it is not on the list, the snowbird path may be your only way to hold on to that money, and you need to know that before you sign a lease overseas, not after. Step 3. File the withholding form before you go. Without it, CRA takes 25% off your CPP and OAS payments as a non-resident. With the right form, called an NR 301, filed in advance, a treaty can bring that down to 15% for a country like the United States or Mexico, and lower in a few others. File it at least 30 days before your first non-resident payment is due, because the reduced rate does not backdate itself. Step 4. Model your income on the net, not the gross. This is where people fool themselves. Take a maximum CPP of $1,507.65 and a maximum OAS of $743.05, and you are looking at $2,250.70 a month before tax. Apply a 15% treaty withholding, and roughly $1,913 actually lands in your account. Budget from that lower number, the one you can really spend, and in a country like Mexico, where a comfortable month can run under $1,500, that still leaves real breathing room. Step 5. Decide honestly between snowbird and a full move. If you have fewer than 10 Canadian years, OAS stops 6 months after you leave, so staying under 6 months abroad each year may be the only way to keep it. If you have 10 or more years and you are heading to a treaty country, a full move can work cleanly. But here is the piece that trips up even the careful planners. Your healthcare is the ticking clock in all of this. Provincial coverage usually cuts off once you have been away 6 or 7 months, and once that lapses, you are on your own in a foreign system. Private health insurance for someone over 65 in another country, with a condition or two already on file, is a very different math problem than the one you have been running for your pension. I have seen quotes that run several $100s a month, sometimes more than a full OAS payment, and that is before a single claim is ever filed. That number can quietly swallow the savings you thought the move was giving you, so it belongs in your plan from day one, not as an afterthought. So let me pull it all together. CPP follows you anywhere in the world. OAS follows you if you have 20 or more years of residency, or 10 or more years paired with a social security agreement in your destination country. GIS stops after 6 months abroad, with no treaty and no exceptions. The snowbird strategy can work, but only if you can honestly pass the CRA Center of Vital Interests test and prove it on paper. And whenever you move as a non-resident, file that NR 301 form so you are not handing over 25% of your pension for nothing. None of this is meant to scare you off the idea. Retiring abroad can be one of the best decisions of your life. The weather, the pace, the lower cost of living, it can all add up to a retirement that simply stretches further. But it only works when the numbers work, and the numbers only work when you have checked these rules before you go, not after the boxes are packed. If you are a Canadian in your 50s or 60s who wants to retire overseas without quietly giving up the benefits you spent a lifetime earning, hit subscribe and keep these videos close as you plan. Do the homework now while you still have every option open. Not later when some of them have already closed behind you.